Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming stood at the center of the Great Council chamber. The massive room held representatives from 12 different alien species. Each species had their own section with special atmosphere controls and gravity fields. The chamber buzzed with the sounds of translation devices turning alien languages into something everyone could understand. Chen looked around the room one last time. He had served as Earth's primary ambassador for 15 years. He knew every face, every species, every political game they played. Today would be his last day in this role. Honored counselors, Chen began, his voice calm and steady. I bring a final message from the United Earth government. The chamber grew quiet. The tall, blue-skinned Zentari leaned forward with interest. The flowing, jellyfish-like deep-flow communion pulsed with curious colors. Even the massive, rock-like Thraknor shifted their attention to the human. Effective immediately, Chen continued. Humanity withdraws from all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. We cancel all treaties, trade agreements, and cooperative ventures. This decision is final and non-negotiable. Silence filled the chamber for exactly 3 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Counselor Vexhai of the Zentari stood up quickly. His logical mind tried to process what he had just heard. Ambassador Chen, surely this is some kind of mistake? Perhaps a translation error? The Cathara delegate, a being that looked like a living song made of light, began to emit sounds of distress. Singing of Stars had always been emotional, but now her light flickered with genuine sadness. Why would humanity do this? We are friends. We work together. Chen remained calm. He had expected this reaction. There is no mistake. The decision has been made by unanimous vote of the Earth Council. We thank the Galactic Council for the years of cooperation, but humanity chooses a different path forward. The hive queen of the insectoid Ziktar clicked her mandibles in anger. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures, rules. You have obligations. We have fulfilled all our obligations, Chen replied. All debts are paid. All contracts are properly terminated according to their terms. We break no laws by choosing to end our participation. The Thraknor war chief, a being the size of a small building, slammed his fist on his platform. The entire chamber shook. This is madness. Humans are weak. You need our protection. Who will defend your worlds from pirates and raiders? Chen smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. Humanity thanks the Council for their concern, but we are quite capable of defending ourselves. The Council leader, an ancient being from the first species to reach the stars, held up a tentacle for silence. Ambassador Chen, please reconsider. What has caused this sudden change? If there are problems, we can discuss them. We can find solutions. There are no problems to solve, Chen said. This is simply humanity's choice. The Zentari counselor Vexhai activated his personal datapad and began scanning quickly through files. According to my records, humanity has been a productive member of galactic society. Your trade routes are profitable. Your technology contributions are valuable. Your military units perform well in joint operations. Why abandon all of this? Chen gathered his papers and placed them in his briefcase. Because humanity has decided to pursue its own interests rather than serve the interests of others. The implications of that statement hit different species at different speeds. The logical Zentari understood immediately and began calculating economic impacts. The emotional species felt the rejection like a physical blow. The warrior species started thinking about threats and responses. You cannot leave, the hive queen buzzed angrily. Too many systems depend on human trade routes. Too many colonies depend on human technology. You will cause economic chaos. That is not humanity's responsibility, Chen replied. He began walking toward the exit. Singing of Stars dimmed her light in sadness. But we are family. The galaxy is our home together. Why do you abandon your family? Chen stopped walking and turned back to face her. For the first time, his expression showed something other than diplomatic calm. Because this family never treated us as equals. We were the useful children who did our chores and stayed quiet while the adults made all the important decisions. The chamber fell silent again. This time the silence felt dangerous. The ancient council leader's voice carried a note of threat. Humanity forgets that they are still a young species. You have been in space for less than 2 centuries. Others have been among the stars for thousands of years. Perhaps you need time to reconsider this rash decision. Chen's smile became colder. Humanity has considered very carefully. Our decision is final. The Thraknor war chief stood to his full impressive height. And if we decide that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to operate independently? What if we decide that your withdrawal threatens galactic stability? Then you would discover that humanity prepared for that possibility as well, Chen said quietly. Something in his tone made several council members shift uncomfortably. The logical Zentari began accessing more files, looking for information about human military capabilities. What he found in the databases suddenly seemed insufficient. What exactly has humanity been doing for the past 5 years? Bexai asked slowly. Learning, Chen replied. Growing, preparing. The Deep Flow Communion representative, who had been silent until now, spoke with a voice like ocean waves. Preparing for what? For independence. Chen reached the chamber doors. They opened automatically, recognizing his diplomatic credentials. He paused in the doorway. The human embassy will be closed within 24 hours. All human trade ships will depart from non-human ports within 1 week. All joint military operations will end immediately. Human space is now off-limits to non-human vessels unless specifically invited. You cannot enforce such restrictions, the Hive Queen protested. We can and we will, Chen said. I suggest you test those restrictions carefully. The Cathara delegate flickered with desperate colors. Please, at least tell us why. What did we do wrong? Chen looked at her with something that might have been pity. You treated humanity like pets instead of partners. You made decisions about our future without asking our opinions. You limited our expansion because it made you uncomfortable. You voted on our fate while we were not in the room. The ancient council leader's tentacles writhed with anger. Those decisions were made for the good of galactic stability. Humanity's rapid expansion was concerning to many species, and now humanity's rapid withdrawal should be concerning to all species, Chen replied. Good day, counselors. He walked through the doors and they closed behind him with a soft hiss. The council chamber remained silent for a long time. Then everyone began talking at once. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. The humans were leaving. Not just the council, but seemingly everything. Human embassies went dark. Human trade ships began departing from alien ports. Human military units withdrew from joint bases. Communication attempts to Earth received only automated responses. The United Earth government is not accepting diplomatic communications at this time. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a problem they did not know how to solve. A member species had simply walked away. And the most frightening part was how prepared humanity seemed to be for the consequences. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and much lonelier than it had that morning. 3 months had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council. The effects rippled through the galaxy like waves from a dropped stone. Councillor Vexhai stared at the economic reports on his screen. The numbers painted a disturbing picture. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades now showed massive gaps. Shipping costs had increased by 40% on major commercial lanes. Several smaller species reported supply shortages of basic goods. How did we become so dependent on them so quickly? He muttered to himself. The logical Zentari had spent weeks analyzing the data. Humanity had been in galactic society for less than 50 years, but they had somehow become critical to its operation. They had not demanded this role. They had simply filled needs that others had not even noticed existed. Human shipping companies had taken the routes that were too small for major corporations, but too large for local operators. Human manufacturers had produced goods that were not quite advanced enough for high-tech species, but too complex for developing worlds. Human traders had connected markets that no one else had bothered to link. Now all of that was gone. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Vexhai accepted the call and found himself looking at War Chief Gorax of the Thraknor. Centauri, Gorax growled. We need to talk about the human situation. I assume you mean the economic disruption, Vexhai replied. I mean their refusal to respond to our messages, Gorax said. His scarred face showed frustration. The Thraknor do not accept being ignored. Vexhai felt a moment of concern. The Thraknor were not known for their patience or their diplomatic solutions. What are you planning? We have assembled a battle fleet. 50 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. We will remind the humans of their proper place in the galactic order. That seems unwise, Vexhai said carefully. The humans have grown too bold, Gorax replied. They think they can simply walk away from their responsibilities. They think they can ignore the Thraknor. This will not be allowed. The communication ended before Vexhai could respond. He immediately began trying to contact other council members, but it was too late. The Thraknor fleet was already moving toward human space. 2 days later, Vexhai received another call from Gorax. This time, the war chief looked confused and angry rather than confident. "What happened?" Vexhai asked. "Something is wrong with our ships," Gorax said. "We approached the boundary of human space. Everything was normal. No human ships were visible. No warnings were transmitted. Then suddenly our engines stopped working." Vexhai leaned forward with interest. "Stopped working how?" "They just stopped. All of them. At exactly the same moment. Power cores active. All systems showing normal, but the engines will not engage. We are drifting. Are you under attack?" "No attack detected. No weapons signatures. No hostile actions of any kind. Our ships are simply disabled." Vexhai began accessing technical databases. "Have you tried restarting the engines?" "Of course we tried," Gorax snapped. "We tried everything." "The engines respond to commands but produce no thrust. It is like they are disconnected from space itself." Before Vexhai could respond, new contacts appeared on Gorax's tactical display. Human ships, sleek and unfamiliar in design, approached the disabled Thraknor fleet. "We are receiving a communication," Gorax reported. "Put it through," Vexhai said. A calm human voice filled the channel. "Thraknor vessels, this is Captain Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human-controlled space. Your ships have been temporarily disabled to prevent any misunderstandings. We are prepared to tow you back to the border, where your engines will resume normal function." Gorax's face turned an even darker shade of red. "This is War Chief Gorax of the Thraknor Empire. You will restore our ships immediately or face the consequences." "War Chief Gorax," Captain Martinez replied politely. "There will be no consequences. You entered our space with a military fleet. We have responded with appropriate defensive measures. Please allow us to escort you safely back to neutral territory. I demand to speak with your superior." "I am authorized to handle this situation," Martinez said. "Please prepare for towing operations." Despite all of Gorax's protests and threats, the human ships began attaching towing cables to the Thraknor vessels. The mighty war fleet that had come to intimidate humanity was being pulled home like broken-down vehicles. When they reached the border, the human ships detached their cables and moved away. Immediately, the Thraknor engines came back online. "How did they do that?" Gorax demanded. Captain Martinez's voice came through the communication one last time. "War Chief Gorax, humanity appreciates the Thraknor Empire's concern for our well-being. However, we must insist that future visits to human space be arranged through proper diplomatic channels. Since humanity is no longer part of the Galactic Council, please contact Earth directly for any necessary communications. Have a pleasant journey home." The human ships vanished into the darkness of space, leaving the Thraknor fleet alone at the border. Vexhai stared at his screen in silence for several minutes after Gorax ended the call. The implications were staggering. Humanity had disabled an entire Thraknor battle fleet without firing a single shot. They had done it so quietly that no one had detected how it was accomplished. Then they had politely towed the fleet home and released it unharmed. It was the most sophisticated display of military power anyone had seen in centuries, and it had been presented as a minor inconvenience. Vexhai began pulling up every file the Council had on human technology. What he found was suddenly very disturbing. Most of the technical data was more than 3 years old. Humanity had been required to share technological developments with the Council, but the most recent reports seemed oddly incomplete. A communication request interrupted his research. This time it was Singing of Stars, the Kythera delegate. "Zentari friend," she said, her light pattern showing deep concern. "I have been trying to contact human colonies near Kythera space. They do not respond to any communications. None at all. Only automated messages. They say that human space is under human jurisdiction and that departure is recommended." Vexhai felt a chill. Recommended? Not ordered. Not demanded, recommended. It is somehow more frightening than threats would be. Before Vexhai could respond, another communication arrived. Then another. Within an hour, he was receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were not responding to outside contact. Human trade ships were returning to human space. Human citizens were leaving alien worlds and going home. The Deep Flow Communion reported that human research teams had abandoned joint scientific projects overnight, taking their equipment and data with them. The Hive Queen reported that human technical advisors had vanished from Ziktar worlds, leaving behind only polite resignation letters. Most disturbing of all, several smaller species reported that their human populations had received messages from Earth offering free transportation home. Many were accepting. They are pulling back completely, Vexhai said to himself. But pulling back from what? And pulling back to where? That night, Vexhai worked late in his office trying to understand what humanity was doing. The data suggested something that seemed impossible. Humanity was not just leaving the Council. They were leaving galactic civilization entirely. Long-range sensors detected unusual activity in the outer regions of human space. Massive construction projects were underway in areas that had been empty just months before. Energy signatures suggested engineering on a scale that dwarfed anything the Council had ever attempted. When Vexhai finally went to sleep, he had one thought repeating in his logical mind. Humanity had been planning this withdrawal for years. They had prepared for every contingency, including military threats from the Council. The question was not what humanity was doing now. The question was what they planned to do next, and whether the rest of the galaxy would be invited to participate. The creature that called itself Shadow Walker Between Stars drifted through the void between ships in the commercial shipping lane. Its natural form was barely visible, a translucent mass of shifting matter that could reshape itself at will. The Whisper Collective had evolved in the deep space between stars, and they were the galaxy's greatest spies. The Galactic Council had hired the Whisper Collective for one purpose: find out what humanity was really doing. Shadow Walker had spent 2 weeks studying human refugee ships. The humans had been accepting aliens who wanted to leave their homeworlds, especially those fleeing conflicts or economic problems. It was the perfect cover for infiltration. Shadow Walker formed itself into the shape of a Cathara refugee, complete with the proper light patterns showing distress and hope. When the human transport ship New Horizons responded to its distress signal, Shadow Walker was ready. "This is Captain Sarah Williams of the New Horizons," came the response. "We show you are traveling alone in an emergency pod. Do you require assistance?" Shadow Walker transmitted the prepared response in perfect Cathara light language. "I am Harmony of Distant Worlds. I seek passage to human space. I have skills in crystalline engineering. We can offer you transport to New Geneva Colony," Captain Williams replied. "Please prepare for docking." The infiltration was almost too easy. Shadow Walker had expected security scans, background checks, interrogations. Instead, the humans processed the refugees with simple efficiency. They asked about skills and preferences for colony placement. They provided food, medical care, and temporary quarters. Shadow Walker found itself assigned to New Geneva, a human colony world that had not existed 5 years ago. During the 3-week journey, it observed everything. The human crew was professional but not military. They seemed genuinely interested in helping refugees start new lives. When a real Cathara refugee became sick, the human medical officer spent hours learning about Cathara physiology to provide proper treatment. "Why do humans help us?" the sick Cathara asked weakly. "Because it is the right thing to do," the medical officer replied simply. Shadow Walker recorded everything but understood none of it. New Geneva was even more puzzling. The colony was built around a massive industrial complex, but it was not like any factory Shadow Walker had seen. The buildings were too large, the energy consumption too high, and the output too strange. Shadow Walker took a job in the complex's materials processing division. Its Cathara form was perfect for working with delicate crystalline structures, and the humans seemed grateful for its skills. What it discovered over the following weeks challenged everything. The galaxy thought it knew about human capabilities. The humans were not building weapons. They were not preparing for war. They were building something much more ambitious and much more terrifying. They were building independence. Shadow Walker watched human engineers casually solve problems that had stumped galactic scientists for decades. They had developed matter converters that could transform basic elements into any compound they needed. They had energy systems that drew power directly from subspace fluctuations. They had manufacturing systems that could produce complex technology from simple raw materials. How long have humans been able to do this? Shadow Walker asked its supervisor, a human named David Chen. David looked surprised by the question. This technology? About 3 years for the current version, but we have been working on it for much longer. The Galactic Council has no record of these developments. David's expression became carefully neutral. The Galactic Council stopped asking for our research reports 2 years ago. They said human technology was too primitive to be worth tracking. Shadow Walker felt something like shock. The Council had been ignoring humanity's technological advancement, dismissing them as a minor species. Meanwhile, humans had developed capabilities that exceeded most Council members. "What is the purpose of this complex?" Shadow Walker asked. "We are building generation ships," David said simply. "Generation ships? Ships large enough to carry entire populations between stars. Ships that can sustain themselves for centuries without outside support. Ships that can establish new colonies anywhere they choose to go." Shadow Walker's shape-shifting biology made it impossible to feel cold, but it experienced something similar. "Where are these ships going?" David smiled. "Where we choose to take them." Over the following days, Shadow Walker began to understand the true scope of humanity's project. They were not just building ships. They were building the infrastructure for complete galactic independence. Every human colony was becoming self-sufficient. They could produce their own food, manufacture their own technology, and defend their own territory. The trade routes that other species depended on were being replaced by internal human networks. More importantly, humans were sharing this technology with any species that wanted to join them. Shadow Walker observed a meeting between human colonists and a group of Zentari refugees. The Zentari had fled their homeworld after a political crisis. They expected to be treated as second-class citizens, grateful for whatever help they received. Instead, the humans offered them full partnership. "We have space for 300 Zentari families on the next generation ship," the human coordinator explained. "You would have equal representation in the colony government. Your children would receive the same education as human children. Your cultural traditions would be preserved and respected." The Zentari leader looked confused. "What do you want in return?" "Your skills and knowledge," the human replied. "Your unique perspective. Your commitment to building something better than what we are leaving behind." Shadow Walker realized with growing horror that humanity was not just leaving the galaxy. They were taking others with them. The spy began accessing human databases, using its skills to penetrate their information systems. What it found was worse than its worst fears. Humanity had detailed psychological profiles of every species in the galaxy. They understood alien biology, culture, and social structures better than most aliens understood themselves. They had identified the weaknesses, strengths, and motivations of every council member. More terrifying, they had contingency plans for every possible response the council might make. If the council tried to use economic pressure, humanity was prepared to be completely self-sufficient. If the council tried military action, humanity had weapons systems that could disable entire fleets without causing casualties. If the council tried to block human expansion, humanity had identified dozens of alternative routes to unoccupied regions of space, but the most disturbing file was labeled Exodus Protocols. Shadow Walker managed to access part of the file before security systems detected the intrusion. What it saw made it understand the full scope of human planning. Humanity was preparing to leave the galaxy entirely, not just human space, not just the council, the galaxy. The generation ships were designed for intergalactic travel. They were planning to cross the void between galaxies and establish human civilization in Andromeda. Any species that wanted to join them was welcome, but they would be traveling far beyond the reach of the Galactic Council. Shadow Walker barely escaped the security scan that followed its intrusion. It spent the rest of its time on New Geneva being extremely careful, gathering only information that would not trigger additional security attention. When the spy finally returned to Council space, it carried information that would shake the foundation of galactic civilization. Humanity was not just leaving the Council. They were offering other species the chance to leave the galaxy entirely, to start fresh in a place where the old hierarchies and power structures could not follow. And based on what Shadow Walker had observed, many species were seriously considering the offer. The Galactic Council faced a crisis unlike anything in their history. For the first time, their authority was not just being challenged, it was being made irrelevant. Worse, humanity seemed completely confident that their plan would succeed. They had not left anything to chance. They had prepared for every contingency, planned for every obstacle, and offered an alternative that many species would find attractive. Shadow Walker transmitted its report to the Council with one final observation. Humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. They were no longer just another species competing for resources and territory. They had become a force for change that could not be stopped, controlled, or contained. The question was not whether humanity's plan would succeed. The question was how many other species would choose to follow them into the darkness between galaxies, leaving the Council to rule over an increasingly empty realm. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 14 hours. Councillor Vexhai looked around the chamber and saw panic in every alien face. Shadow Walker's report had changed everything. "The situation is worse than we thought," announced the ancient council leader. Its tentacles writhed with agitation as it spoke. "According to the Whisper Collective's intelligence, humanity is not simply withdrawing from galactic society. They are building the infrastructure to leave the galaxy entirely." The Hive Queen's mandibles clicked rapidly with stress. "This is unacceptable. If humanity leaves and takes other species with them, it will destabilize the entire galactic order." War Chief Gorak slammed his massive fist on his platform. "Then we stop them. We cannot allow this exodus to continue." "With what?" asked Singing of Stars, her light patterns dim with sadness. "Your fleet could not even enter human space. They disabled 50 Thraknor warships without firing a shot." Vexhai pulled up the latest economic projections on his display. The numbers were getting worse every day. "The economic impact is already severe. 6 minor species have requested emergency aid packages. Trade volume is down 37% across the major shipping lanes. If this continues, we will face systemic collapse within 2 years." The Deep Flow Communion's representative spoke with the voice of troubled waters. "We have a more immediate problem. 3 of our member species have officially requested information about joining humanity's exodus." Silence fell over the chamber. That was the nightmare scenario. If established council members began leaving, the entire structure of galactic civilization could crumble. "Which species?" the council leader asked quietly. "The Verdant Collective has been in contact with human representatives for 6 weeks. They are considering relocating their entire civilization to human generation ships. The Crystal Singers have sent diplomatic missions to human space. The nomad fleets have already begun moving toward human territory." Vexhai felt his logical mind struggling to process the implications. 3 species leaving would cascade into more departures. Other species would see it as validation of humanity's alternative. "We need to understand why," said Singing of Stars. "Why are established species considering such a drastic step?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. The communication was from Ambassador Thylex of the Verdant Collective, one of the species considering exodus. "Honored counselors," Thylex's plant-like form appeared on the main screen. "I am transmitting this message to explain our people's decision." The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood that this message would determine the future of the galaxy. "For 800 years, the Verdant Collective has been a loyal member of the Galactic Council," Thylex continued. "We have followed every regulation, paid every assessment, and contributed to every common cause. In return, we have been treated as a minor voice in a system dominated by older, more powerful species." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The hierarchy of galactic politics was an unspoken but real factor in every decision. 3 months ago, human representatives approached us with a proposal. They offered us equal partnership in their Exodus project. Not as junior members or client species, but as full partners with equal voices in their colonial government. Vexhai began accessing files on humanity's recruitment efforts. What he found was sophisticated psychological manipulation disguised as diplomacy. "The humans studied our culture, our needs, our dreams for the future," Thylex said. "They understood what we wanted better than we understood it ourselves. They offered us not just escape from current problems, but the chance to build something better." The Hive Queen buzzed angrily. "What could they offer that the Council cannot provide?" Thylex's response was devastating in its simplicity. "Respect." The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Every species in the chamber understood exactly what Thylex meant. "The humans treat us as equals," the Verdant ambassador continued. "They ask for our opinions. They incorporate our ideas into their plans. They share their technology freely instead of parceling it out as rewards for compliance. War Chief Gorax growled with frustration. The Council maintains order. We prevent wars. We ensure stability. You maintain the status quo, Thylex replied. You preserve a system where the same species make all the important decisions, while the rest of us follow orders. The humans offer something different. They offer change. The Council leader's tentacles curled with anger. And what happens when this human experiment fails? When their grand exodus ends in disaster? Who will rescue the species that followed them into the void? Thylex's image smiled, a disturbing expression on his plant-like features. That question reveals exactly why we are leaving. You assume the humans will fail because you cannot imagine anyone succeeding without the Council's guidance. The humans have already proven you wrong. Before anyone could respond, Thylex delivered the final blow. The Verdant Collective officially withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We will be joining humanity's exodus to Andromeda within 6 months. Any of our people who wish to remain in this galaxy are free to do so. But our civilization chooses a new path. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Within minutes, more communications began arriving. The Crystal Singers announced their intention to follow the Verdant Collective. The nomad fleets declared their independence from council authority. 3 smaller species requested immediate meetings with human representatives. Vexhai watched the galactic order collapse in real time. Every departure encouraged others to consider leaving. Every species that joined humanity's exodus validated their alternative to council rule. We need a military solution, Gorax declared. We cannot allow this exodus to continue. Military action against whom? Asked the Deep Flow Communion. Humanity? They have proven they can defend themselves. The departing species? Many of them have been our allies for centuries. Singing of stars flickered with desperate patterns. What if we offer reforms? What if we change the council structure to give smaller species more voice? The ancient council leader's voice carried centuries of authority. The council structure has maintained galactic peace for 1,000 years. We will not destroy it because a few species have been seduced by human promises. Vexhai realized that the council's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. Their unwillingness to change, their confidence in the existing order, their assumption that other species needed their guidance. All of it was driving more and more civilizations toward humanity's alternative. What if the humans are right? He asked quietly. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him. The question was heretical, but it needed to be asked. What if our system is not the best possible option? What if smaller species would be better served by equal partnership rather than hierarchical protection? What if humanity's exodus succeeds because their approach is superior to ours? The Hive Queen's buzz became threatening. Are you suggesting that we abandon galactic civilization? I am suggesting that we consider the possibility that galactic civilization might abandon us, Vexhai replied. If current trends continue, half the galaxy's species will join humanity's exodus within 5 years. The council leader's tentacles writhed with agitation. Then we must prevent the exodus from succeeding. How? Vexhai asked. Military force has failed. Economic pressure is meaningless against a self-sufficient civilization. Diplomatic threats are irrelevant to species that no longer recognize our authority. The question hung in the air unanswered because there was no answer. For the first time in their history, the Galactic Council faced a challenge they could not solve through their traditional methods. Humanity had not declared war or issued ultimatums. They had simply offered a better alternative and let other species choose freely. The terrifying part was that more and more species were making that choice. As the emergency session dragged into its 20th hour, one fact became clear to everyone present. The galaxy as they knew it was ending. The only question was whether the Council would adapt to the new reality or become irrelevant trying to preserve the old one. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped out of the transport shuttle and onto the observation deck of Council Station Omega. She wore a simple blue uniform with no rank insignia, no weapons, and no diplomatic immunity badges. She carried only a small briefcase and a calm expression that had unnerved alien diplomats for the past 6 months. Behind her walked 2 human technicians, equally unremarkable in appearance. They were not bodyguards or assistants. They were witnesses. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from 47 species had gathered to hear what humanity's leader would say. The original 12 council members sat in their traditional positions, but they were surrounded by delegates from species who had never before been invited to participate in council proceedings. Dr. Chen walked to the center of the chamber without ceremony. She did not wait for formal introductions or diplomatic protocols. She simply began speaking. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of the Human Colonial Development Agency," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I am here to answer your questions about humanity's Exodus project." The ancient council leader raised a tentacle. "Dr. Chen, humanity's unilateral withdrawal from galactic society has created significant disruption. Many species are concerned about the stability of—" "No," Dr. Chen interrupted. "I am not here to discuss stability or disruption. I am here to explain reality." The interruption sent shocked murmurs through the chamber. No one interrupted the council leader. "Reality is simple," Dr. Chen continued. "Humanity spent 47 years trying to integrate into galactic society. We followed every rule, respected every tradition, and contributed to every common project. In return, we were treated as useful children who should be grateful for the privilege of serving our betters." Councillor Vexhai leaned forward. "Humanity was offered full membership in— Humanity was offered a seat at the children's table," Dr. Chen said calmly. "We were allowed to participate as long as we did not question, complain, or expect actual equality." War Chief Gorax stood to his full, intimidating height. "Humanity's arrogance will not be tolerated. You will return to your proper place or face the consequences." Dr. Chen looked at him with the expression of an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. "War Chief Gorax, your fleet's encounter with human defensive systems should have made our capabilities clear. Would you like a more detailed demonstration?" The threat was delivered so casually that it took a moment for everyone to process it. Dr. Chen was offering to destroy a Thraknor fleet, as if discussing the weather. Gorax's face turned deep red, but he sat down without responding. "The decision to leave was not made in anger," Dr. Chen continued. "It was made after careful analysis of our situation. Humanity determined that galactic society offers nothing we cannot provide for ourselves, while demanding that we accept permanent subordinate status." The Hive Queen buzzed frantically. "What about trade? Technology exchange? Mutual defense? What about them?" Dr. Chen asked. "Humanity trades with species that respect us as equals. We share technology with partners, not masters. We provide mutual defense to those who offer the same in return." Singing of stars flickered with desperate patterns. "But you are destroying the galactic community. Families are being separated. Civilizations are being torn apart." Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. "No one is being forced to leave. Every individual, every family, every species chooses freely. If their current situation was satisfactory, they would stay. The fact that so many are choosing to leave should tell you something about their level of satisfaction." The ancient council leader's tentacles writhed with frustration. "This exodus will fail. You cannot sustain entire civilizations in the void between galaxies. When disaster strikes, do not expect the council to rescue you." "We do not expect rescue," Dr. Chen replied. "We expect to succeed." The simple confidence in her voice was more intimidating than any threat. Vexhai activated his display and pulled up statistical projections. "According to our analysis, 17 species have committed to joining your exodus, with 23 more seriously considering it. If this trend continues, galactic civilization will lose 40% of its population within a decade. That assumes galactic civilization survives the transition," Dr. Chen said. "Current economic models suggest systemic collapse within 18 months if current trends continue." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting questions, threats, and demands. Dr. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down. When silence returned, she continued as if nothing had happened. "Humanity is prepared to offer technical assistance to any species that wishes to remain in this galaxy, but become fully self-sufficient. We will share the technologies needed for independent survival and growth." The offer shocked everyone into silence. "Why would you do that?" asked the Deep Flow Communion. "Because isolation benefits no one," Dr. Chen replied. "Humanity prefers cooperation to domination. We would rather see thriving independent civilizations than struggling dependent ones." The ancient council leader's voice carried a note of desperation. "What do you want?" What would convince humanity to remain and work within the existing system? Dr. Chen considered the question for a long moment. Nothing. The single word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Humanity has moved beyond the need for external validation or permission, she explained. We no longer require membership in galactic society. We no longer need the Council's protection or guidance. We no longer want to participate in a system that treats technological advancement and social development as threats to be managed, rather than achievements to be celebrated. She gestured to her two companions, who began unpacking equipment from their cases. However, humanity does not wish to leave anyone behind who wants a different future. We are prepared to offer immediate transport and full colonial partnership to any species that wishes to join our exodus. The equipment her companions unpacked was a sophisticated holographic projector. Dr. Chen activated it, and the chamber filled with images of human generation ships. The ships were massive beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Cities in space, capable of supporting millions of beings for centuries. Agricultural decks that could feed entire populations. Manufacturing facilities that could produce any technology they needed. Defense systems that made them nearly invulnerable. These are the first 12 generation ships, Dr. Chen announced. Each one can carry 5 million beings comfortably. Construction time for additional ships is approximately 6 months per vessel. Current production capacity allows us to build 40 ships simultaneously. The implications were staggering. Humanity could evacuate entire civilizations faster than anyone had imagined possible. The exodus begins in 3 months, Dr. Chen continued. Any species that wishes to participate must make their decision within 60 days to allow proper coordination. Ambassador Thylex of the Verdant Collective stood up. Dr. Chen, on behalf of my people, I want to thank humanity for this opportunity. The Verdant Collective is prepared to depart. Immediately. The Crystal Singers are also ready, announced another delegate. The Nomad Fleets, request assignment to the third generation ship, called out a third voice. One by one, species announced their decisions. Some chose to join the exodus immediately. Others requested time to consider. A few declared their intention to remain, but asked for the self-sufficiency technology humanity had offered. When the announcements finished, 31 species had committed to leaving the galaxy with humanity. Dr. Chen nodded calmly, as if she had expected exactly that number. Transport schedules will be distributed within 48 hours. Anyone who changes their mind before departure is welcome to join us. She began packing her equipment, clearly preparing to leave. The ancient council leader made one final desperate attempt. Dr. Chen, surely we can negotiate some compromise. Perhaps humanity could maintain a small presence in this galaxy while pursuing your Exodus project. Dr. Chen paused and looked directly at the council leader. You still do not understand. This is not a negotiation. Humanity is not asking for permission or approval. We are informing you of our decision as a courtesy. She finished packing and walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she stopped and turned back to face the chamber. In 5 years, when your economic systems have stabilized and your political structures have adapted to the new reality, humanity will consider establishing limited trade relations with this galaxy. Until then, we wish you well. Dr. Chen and her companions left the chamber, walking past dozens of alien delegates who stared at them in silence. 3 months later, the first-generation ships departed for Andromeda. 47 species made the journey, leaving the Galactic Council to govern a galaxy that suddenly felt much larger and much emptier. The Exodus succeeded beyond humanity's most optimistic projections. Within 2 years, human colonies in Andromeda were thriving. Within 5 years, they had established trade networks and defense agreements that rivaled anything the Milky Way had ever achieved. The Galactic Council survived, but it was forever changed. The species that remained learned to cooperate as equals rather than follow hierarchical commands. The species that left proved that independence was not only possible but preferable.